When I got my first spirograph kit as a child, I felt just like an artist, as I couldn't believe I could create these perfect designs with little effort. And although I don't own a spirograph kit nowadays, I found a way to create a similar design with one simple tool that you might just have in your stash. And that magic tool is stencils. But not just any stencil. They need to have a radial pattern, just like my Atom mandala stencil. I start by inking the first color, which is yellow. I'm using distressed oxide inks, and the substrate is a round watercolor paper. Once the first color is fully inked, I lift the stencil, clean the yellow ink off, and then slightly rotate it to the right, making sure I match the center of the mandala with the center of the yellow pattern. Then I take a second color and ink through the whole stencil again, covering the yellow pattern underneath. What I love about distressed oxide inks is that even when layered, you can still see the other colors peeking through. Then I repeat the same procedure of cleaning the stencil and rotating it slightly to the right to add the next color. I'm eyeballing the rotations. However, if you want it exact, you can always measure the circle with a compass. I just thought it would be too much work. Now 3 colors could have been enough, but you know me. So I decided to add one more color, and glad that I did because I loved how it turned out. And wait till you see how I used it in a card. Yes, I know I made a card, but I just couldn't resist. I will even show you how I used one of these in an art journal. So now that I know it works well with a circular stencil, can it work with any of my square or rectangular stencils if they have a radial pattern? So I try it with my synchronized stencil, using inks again. At this point, I would have loved to have Pixie spray to hold the stencil in place, as my hands were hurting from holding the stencil. But although I bought it, I hadn't received it in the mail yet. I did receive it before my last sample, so you will see later how easy it was to create this pattern with the Pixie spray. In the meantime, I follow the same procedure by inking and spinning the stencil to create a spirograph pattern. I even tried with my Geo Starburst stencil using only blue inks. It got me thinking though that if I can use inks to create this pattern, then I can also use sprays and it would save me so much time. So I decided to try. I tape my stained glass stencil to my mat and spray my first color. Then I use a paper towel to soak up some of the excess spray before lifting the stencil, which helps clean it as well. Then I rotate the stencil clockwise and tape it again. I spray it one last time following the same procedure, and voila! A beautiful pattern emerges. Now I know I'm on a roll. And I even try creating this pattern by spraying through my petal stencil on a large heart. This time the stencil is a 9x12 rectangle, so I need to make sure the pattern covers the whole heart while I'm rotating it. But to my amazement, it turned out so good. Finally, I received the Pixie spray in the mail. I spray my stencil, place it on the paper, and ink through it with my first color. This Pixie spray is perfect for these thin stencils as it's hard to hold them while inking. I continue with the same procedure with the other 2 colors, and even after rotating the stencil, the stickiness lasted throughout all the rotations, and it was so easy to use. And the art journal I promised to show you, I cut one of the spiral designs in half and glued it on opposite sides of the page spread. And similarly, I cut all the circular designs in half and created a few short slimline cards using black and craft cardstock. I love trying out new ideas, especially those that create unique patterns, like in this video right here, where I use geometrical shapes to create a bokeh blur effect using a super simple technique. The results were just as magical.